You know, they call it fiction. And tonight on the Mind of Sai Marie, we're going to discuss how art imitates life. Fiction is often the camouflage of truth. The Order, a movie that came out in 2024, wasn't just a crime thriller. It was a cinematic archive of a warning we've been issuing for decades. Christian nationalism didn't sneak in. It was scaffolded, funded, and ritualized. And now the coup has come to power. Directed by Justin Kurzel, The Order dramatizes the FBI's pursuit of a white supremacist terror group that was active in the 1980s. Jude Law plays Terry Husk, an agent tracking Robert Jay Mathews, played by Nicholas Hoult, leader of The Order. Now let's go back a little bit on some historical grounding. This is based on The Silent Brotherhood by Kevin Flynn and Gary Gerhardt, and the film inscribes real events, which are things such as bank robberies, synagogue bombings, and the murder of the Jewish radio host Ellen Berg. The film's climax on Whidbey Island echoes the real-life standoff where Matthews died in a fiery shootout. It's not just drama, it's documentation. So, extremism in America was never dormant. The Order's ideology didn't just vanish, it metastasized. From Aryan nations to modern Christian nationalist factions, the blueprint remains: infiltrate, destabilize, and claim divine justification. The film's limited release and muted reception mirror America's refusal to confront its own extremist lineage. This is not oversight, it's strategic erasure. So, if you haven't watched this movie, you should probably go watch it. Here, of course, I do not debate the existence of extremism. I archive it, and I do not entertain revisionist narratives. I correct them. The Order is not entertainment. It is a cinematic transmission of what we tried to warn you about. The coup you see now was scaffolded by silence, by denial, and by the refusal to name Christian nationalism as the domestic terrorist and group sect that it was. So this is an opportunity for you to understand there's a cultural correction needed here. I invite all the listeners to revisit the film not as viewers but as archivists and ask yourself, what did I miss? What did I refuse to see? See, the Order wasn't just a group, it was a prototype. And the prototype has been activated. We are not post-coup, we are mid-ritual. So we need to archive that. And we need to go look at what was already being scaffolded back 40 years ago. Because this comes back to a very simple truth. And that is, you see, the reality was people have trying to warn you for years that there were Christian nationalists trying to infiltrate the Republican Party and to set up for the coup that you have now seen come to power. And this movie is something that, it has some great actors, obviously. And while it is a fictionalized crime thriller based on the real life 1980s white supremacist group known as the Order, which was founded in Washington and Idaho, the movie dramatizes the FBI investigation into neo-Nazi factions. And like I said, they did some terrible, horrible things like bank robberies, armored car heists, and unaliving people as it goes. FBI agent Terry Husk tracks down the group and its leader Bob Mathews in a cat and mouse chase that culminated in a fiery standoff on Whidbey Island, Washington. It did have a limited theatrical release in December 2024, and that probably really limited the amount of people that seen it, but it is a film that I feel everyone needs to see, because the FBI was working to try to stop these kinds of people, but if you go and you watch the kinds of things that they are promoting and they're trying to encourage. It doesn't take long for you to understand that this is a very tactical and strategical led group, and the idea of infiltrating high government offices and the military and police forces are all part of those tactical strategies that they had. So if we want to talk about what's happening in our country right now, it's really important that we really pay attention to the last 40 years as it correlates to this particular information, because they were certainly not the only group. The order was certainly not the only group. There are many different neo-Nazi sects. There are many different fascist groups, but the basis of the prototype of Christian nationalists and their goal of infiltrating to together produce a tyrannical president, such as what we're seeing now, who would unleash these types of things, is the same. It remains the same. And there's something else I need to point out here because it's very important, and that is the reality that we always talk about how this is going back to Nazi Germany, but in reality, we got to go deeper than that, because Nazi Germany was actually inspired by the United States and segregation of Black people, as well as native resettlement. And those two things were very big inspirations to the Nazis in Germany. So we started that, and it's never really fled. This has been a problem that has been consistent, and it has been systematic, and it has been here always. So when people say, even the very nature of the MAGA quote unquote slogan of "Make America Great Again," it is without basis, because America has never been great. And even the founding fathers said so in their Declaration of Independence against the king who was considered the tyrant of their time. The things that were happening to these people that made them want to rebel and to revolt against the crown, their authority, which is something else people need to realize. In America, these are two very bold truths. Yes, this is the history, but also so is the spirit of revolt. These are two things that are authentic to the land that is known as Turtle Island, and they will always be. So you really have to understand that what they wanted to do was to try to limit the progression that the founding fathers laid down to be what we built the country upon, which was in the effort to build a more perfect union, which we do not have a perfect union, and we are definitely losing sight of building together in an effort towards that, because of people who are extremists, who do believe that they are going to be justifying their actions and call them godly, which is completely anti Christian and is completely against everything that the man known as Jesus Christ said about clothing your widows and feeding the poor, and whatsoever you do to the least of these, you do unto me. And ultimately, the biggest lesson of them all, which gives the Bible any kind of true basis: love God and love your neighbor like you love yourself. And you will know them by their fruits, they say. So this is why it doesn't add up. People who want to go in and have ICE rappel onto an apartment complex to rip children out of their homes at night, half dressed because it's nighttime, into the October cold element air, and put zip ties upon them, who want to deny other human beings life-saving care in emergency rooms, who have treated other human beings like they are garbage, are what we are facing. And they feel justified in their actions, and they have always been here. And unfortunately, what has happened is that a lot of people stop paying attention, and now we have a very real problem, and we have a lunatic at the helm with all of us in the ship behind him. So The reality is, Americans, we need to come together to understand that without the base principles of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, there is no America. And anyone who does not stand in fullness of those supportive foundational documents and is in opposition to the Constitution, including the First and the Second and every other amendment after it, is anti-American, is anti-constitutional, is not a patriot, and doesn't know a damn thing about the history of the country known as America being anti-fascist since forever. And I'm sure that there are veterans listening who would appreciate me saying that, but I will say my grandfather served in World War II, and he absolutely despised Nazis. That was the one thing he hated more than anything, and the sentiment remains with me. So educate yourselves, check out that movie, and understand that what we're seeing is in real time what these people have been strategizing to occur for a very long time, for longer than some of us have even been alive. And weigh in on what you can do to be a constant reminder that this isn't American, this isn't Christian, and this is not what we stand for. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful Sunday. This has been another episode of the Mind of Sai Marie.